person of Mr. Gideon Negedu. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On the episode today. Fertilizer seems to be a major worry as far as would-be farmers and even farmers are concerned in Nigeria.
Yes.
What's your take on this? Perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps I'm right.
You are not entirely wrong or right. Let me put it that way. Fertilizers usually was a concern amongst the farmers. And their concern usually stems from one, access to cost, all right? Sure. We have over time tried to solve the problem as an association of fertilizers. Access and cost. Access has been seriously resolved because in the last 7 years we've been implementing what is called the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, which has been able to attract a lot of private sector confidence and investment. We have moved our production base from less than 2 to 3 blending plants in 2016, active, to almost 80 fertilizer blending plants today. So access is not the problem, but the challenge has always been around cost. The challenge around cost, particularly in the last 2 years, has been fueled by the post-COVID-19 supply chain crisis, and then again the Russia-Ukraine crisis, because we get a lot of the raw materials, the key raw material, that is potash, from the Russians. Nigeria is self-sufficient in the area of urea production, but we have a strategic agreement with the National Fertilizer Company of Morocco, OCP. It's about the largest in the world in terms of fertilizer production. And then, of course, with Murikali in Russia, where we get our potash from. Again, internally, we had a shock event, which is the fuel subsidy removal, all right, which has its own multiplier effect on everything in the economy. We are not immune from that.
You know, I want you to demystify this. Many are worried. When you talk to certain experts, they will tell you chemical fertilizers are not the way to go. Some will also tell you, well, inorganic fertilizers, but the availability of that seems to be a far cry from what is needed to take care of the Nigerian farmer. Synthetic fertilizers, we are beginning to see what they now call liquid fertilizers. Can you throw more light on that?
Clearly, these are chemicals. Fertilizers are clearly chemicals, whether they are from organic sources or they are inorganic sources. How we use them, how we produce them, how we use them, how the crop takes them, these are all very important factors. And ideally, we as an association, we believe that whether it's organic or inorganic, these are complementary products. You know, they're supposed to complement each other. When you deal with a huge population like ours, you don't have the luxury of going organic fully, all right? There are many things you have to concern yourselves with. In the area of production of inorganic fertilizers, there's a lot of effort because nobody has any special markets that he goes to. My mom will obviously go to the same market, my wife will go to the same market and buy the same food. So we all, as an industry, always have to be careful what we're putting out there. So there's a lot of serious responsibility from the players in the industry to ensure that we're getting good quality fertilizers.
Do fertilizers in any way hurt our world, our earth? Because a lot of people will tell you chemicals get washed into our waterways and, you know, aquatic life gets affected. You know, those kind of things. Can you just help us demystify this whole thing?
Well, I must admit that fertilizers, like any other chemical that is irresponsibly used, has a negative effect on the ecosystem, all right? Urea, for example, leaches very, very quickly through the soil, but in terms of impact on runoff waterways, I think it's minimal. All right, I think is minimal compared to other farm inputs like crop protection products that are directly applied on the farm, on the leaves or on any of the exposed tissue of the plant. We must also let people know that private sector, organized private sector, and the government do not sit down and fold their hands. Research is consistent, and effort has always been made to make sure that people are responsible the way they produce. But importantly, too, people have to be responsible the way they apply. I don't see us having that contamination problem in Africa, and sub-Saharan Africa as a whole, because our fertilizer use rate is the lowest in the world.
Agreed, is the lowest in the world.
Yeah.
But when it also comes to expertise on how to even apply,
Yes.
how much are we seeing extension workers get involved? Because, I mean, over the years, the farmer probably just applies as he's always known it to be.
Correct. We worked with the last administration, actually the immediate past administrations and the one before, to have a fertilizer bill passed into law, which criminalizes this bad behavior on how people produce, people use, or how people produce and distribute fertilizers. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard because it's not as effective. Yes.
One other thing I would like to find out from you is that the middleman always seems to be the problem. Can certain things be done?
Yeah.
Probably if he cannot be completely eliminated, to see that, you know, fertilizer gets to those who truly need it.
So the middleman position of things used to be when we had subsidy programs, all right, where you had to rely on somebody to get you government subsidized fertilizers. Well, now you don't have that problem because all you need to do is just go walk to your nearest dealer or retailer and buy your fertilizers.
The current administration has just declared a state of emergency in agriculture, food security, and what have you. Are we that insecure that such a pronouncement needed to be made?
I believe we have a challenge, we have a crisis. It's been unfolding, and if it is not nipped in the bud, it will escalate. So I think the president is hands-on in not just only rallying a cry around food and a need to be secure in food, but making it an integral component of national security. Now, what's the challenge? You have a population that majors more in farming. But a lot of this, a good number of people cannot go to their farms. And that's the truth. Whether it's in the Benue axis or the Northwest or the Northeast, it's a big challenge. There's a need for a more proactive effort to ensure that farmers are secured enough to go and farm. We are part of an ecosystem, all right? And the macroeconomic policies of government ultimately will determine for us where or the direction that we will be swinging along. Some key bold position that the former administration took, I think there are success stories that have not been sufficiently sung. Last year, Nigeria only imported 428 tons of rice. This is a country that imports almost 3 million tons of rice every year. In fact, smaller countries are here positioned to be able to bring this rice into the country. But Nigeria has stopped doing that because we are encouraging local production of rice here.
And another question I want to find out before we round up is, do we use the same components up north as it is down south, looking at the weather variations?
No, we do. What happens is you have, it's called a blend. And you blend specifically to your crop and soil requirements. Okay, so the amount of the efficiency of the particular nutrient that you are trying to remedy differs from one place to the other.
So that's another issue that we have not talked about. Farmers need to know what the deficiencies are before they even know what to apply
yes.
for maximum yield.
I agree completely, and we as an association, we continue to work with government to promote soil testing. Soil labs are coming up here and there where farmers are encouraged to take their soils and take them for tests. They bring those results to some farmers are already doing that. Like I said, the enlightened one, the ones that are more commercial, they do those tests, they bring them to us, and then they say, okay, blend these specific fertilizers for me. So the issue of price and available, you're going to always keep having these issues, okay? But we are not oblivious to the fact that you have the vulnerable amongst us. So whatever targeted support we are going to give them has to be done responsibly, done in a way that it is deliberate to take the farmer away from this point of poverty or lack to, making himself sufficient. So don't put a farmer on a list for the next 5, 10 years. No, you should have a plan that, you're helping him grow. So you're giving him extension services, not just input, to help him move from that. And then you're creating a market, a system for him where he is assured. The president has alluded to what you call commodity boards that he wants to set up. It's a good idea, provided it's done rightly. So it gives a farmer what we call a guaranteed minimum price. He knows that whatever happens, worst case scenario, he will sell his product to government. And he's encouraged to just go ahead and farm and go ahead and farm. This has a pull effect for every part of the economy. The banks will want to be able to support because there's a clear path of wealth, but
growth, if we may call it.
Or growth, sorry. So targeted, clear exit strategy for these programs, I think is very key.
Well, Gideon Negedu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Gideon is Secretary FEPSAN. FEPSAN stands for Fertilizer Producers and Suppliers Association of Nigeria.